Tom Lambert, and I've just taken over the director of cricket role at Datchet Cricket Club, having spent 13 years with Berkshire. Well, 33 years with Berkshire if you add in the playing side of things and the pathway and the cult stuff. So yeah, an interesting change for me, having spent so much time in my county, which obviously I thoroughly enjoyed, but equally as pleased to be back with my boyhood club.
What really inspired the move after so long at Berkshire?
Oh, a number of things really. Nothing. I must say, I've had quite a few phone calls in the last week or two to ask what's gone on and what's the problem and where's the fallout. I'd quite like to go on record as saying absolutely there isn't a fallout, and Berkshire will always be the number one thing close to my heart. As it is, it was just a simple case of another opportunity came up that I just felt after 13 years of doing what I'd done that this was a chance to go back and help out my club, which probably by its own admission isn't in the great place at the moment. And having spent some a long time, over 3 months, really talking through to the club and to the people who are now involved with the club, it really did end up ticking enough boxes for me to make a rather surprising move to people and leave Berkshire. So yeah, nothing more than that. Really. I've certainly, there are a lot of people sort of texted, rung and said what's happened, etc., etc. And crikey, nothing. Berkshire were brilliant and did everything they can to keep me and stuff. It was just, I think after 13 years, there was opportunities elsewhere that I felt that I wanted to take, and that I'd earned the right to probably to move on and take those opportunities. But yeah, God, I mean, Berkshire's everything to me, so it was really difficult to walk away, and they certainly did everything they can to keep me, and I'm sure we'll probably work again in the future. But right now, this project is pretty cool and something that I want to give a go.
Oh, but how do you think that will impact Datchet?
Well, I think that was one of the biggest excitements, really. I think the club is knowledgeable enough to know that club cricket in maybe the last 20 years has gone down a certain route where it's not necessarily a sustainable model. I think clubs have kind of gone through peaks and troughs with it. And I think the place that the club got into, if I'm honest, it was probably a place that I started. I finished with Henley in 2010 and was really keen to go back to my club and take them as far as they can. And probably from a selfish, romantic point of view, I wanted to try and get into the Premier League and win it with Datchet because it was my boyhood club. In doing that, we probably took a few wrong turns in terms of quite a large turnover of players every year, of people coming in and from the outside. And whilst they were brilliant, I loved playing with them. They gave a lot to the club. Ultimately, it wasn't going to be their club that they were going to stay with. The more you bring in, the more the people that used to be there are not as involved as much. And I guess that contributed to the position it's in now. And I certainly don't sit here and criticise the club or say that they're not in a great position and they're lucky for me to come back. But I think they certainly sold a vision to me whereby they wanted to start from a grassroots point, build from the bottom. And I guess like 13 years ago, Berkshire did the same thing. They said, like, we want you to have a look at this and build it from the bottom up. And the first 3 or 4 years of that were the 3 or 4 of the best years of my life. Really exciting, getting my hands on everything, like a blank canvas, do what you want with it. And I probably haven't had that opportunity in the last 3 or 4 years because Berkshire's been so well run that it's almost machine-like and you've just got on with your job. And I haven't quite had that, that turnover of excitement of changing things up. Berkshire got some really good people in place. Stewie Davison did an awesome job. Neil Robinson doing an awesome job. And there wasn't quite as much for me to get my teeth stuck into. So when this came, I got those sort of tingle feelings of, wow, I could really start from anywhere here and blank canvas. And I like the vision of the club. I like the opportunity to build it from the bottom, maybe not do what clubs do these days and have a big turnover of players. We're going to have to, by definition, have a turnover of players because we haven't got any. I mean that sort of politely, but there's quite a few guys have left from last year, which is absolutely fine. They did a great job when they were at the club, but they've moved on because it's not necessarily their home club and their lives have changed. So yeah, by definition, we have to get people in. The type of people we are getting in, though, are guys maybe that we can help to make better as opposed to finished products. Some are, but obviously some I can work with and try to make better.
What strength does that bring to a side where you kind of really go from the ground up and really invest in those junior players?
Yeah, I think firstly, from a Datchet perspective, the short term is there will be some new players introduced. I think the key to it is I put sort of 5 parameters on the type of player that I wanted to come in, and things like location, age, where they lived in relation to the ground, could they train, are they kind of hungry young players that I can make better. They've got to tick quite a few of those boxes for me to get them in. I think if they're from a distances away and they're already proven players, then they probably don't need us, if that makes sense. I hope there is a mixture of the two things in there, and there has to be for us to be competitive. But yeah, that's certainly from a Datchet perspective in the short term, which I hope stabilises the club, whereby we can then build up the cult section, and we can bring some players through that are homegrown. I guess we have artificial homegrown players at the minute because some of the guys we've got in are quite young, but that's what we have to work with. And then from a Berkshire perspective, it was exactly that. It was the job title was pretty easy. I don't know how I stumbled into it in 2012. Really, I just sat down in the pub and said, "Would you like to do it?" And I said, "Yeah." I needed money, and I had a 3-year-old kid, and I couldn't really pay my way. So the vision was very much build a homegrown team. Don't care if you're not successful. You can't pay people in from the outside. Oh, sorry, you could have one professional. I was very, very lucky. Richard Logan in it, the first instance was awesome and got the ball rolling. And then Chris Petplow was the enigma that Chris was awesome for 8 years. But yeah, apart from those two, we haven't had anybody else. It's all been homegrown to the point in which our championships drawing side, should we say, with Staffordshire last year, all of them minus Tommy were homegrown guys from the age of 10 when they walked through the pathway. So I was really proud of that. And I guess I didn't know at the time that I'd be leaving. But if I was to leave with a team that took a field where all of them I met at 10 years of age was a pretty cool thing. And I know for a fact that was what Datchet sort of sat down and sold to me. We're not giving you any money to pay players, but what we are going to give you is the infrastructure to attract players, and then you make them better. So that's the model. It's how successful it is. I think it's maybe easier at national county and at county level and pathway level because people want to be there.
Yeah.
Whether I can do the same thing at club level will be really interesting to see, and there's an interesting test of me, I guess.
So what do you think it is that does motivate club players that's very different to the county players?
Again, similar to what I've said, trying to get people that have a link to the club, trying to get people from a location point of view who live close to the club, who, if you can give them that enjoyment and learning with cricket, they'll want to stay. And then when they stay on, you might get a 10-year player then. If you get a 10-year player times 10 players, you've created a club again. With Berkshire, you don't need to do that because everyone, by definition, when they walk into a pathway at 10 years of age, want to be a professional cricketer or want to be a Berkshire cricketer. So it's not difficult to get them in. It's more difficult for the ones that I guess you have to leave out. Whereas with Datchet, you're not going to have the issue of leaving people out. I guess it's getting people through the door and keeping them through the door. And in my very short time in the job, my main focus has been on who has a link to the club, who would care enough about the club. What have I got to work with, which is still plenty. And if I am going to bring people in, let's make their location close to where we are, then want to train and sell them. This is how we're trying to do it because I don't know much about the club game, if I'm honest, Teddy, and that's an interesting thing because I know a lot about NCCA cricket, but I'm not really kept up with the club cricket, and I don't really know necessarily who the best teams are, who's in which league. I obviously know the Berkshire boys because I follow them on a Saturday and how they're getting on because it's great. They turn up on a Sunday and they've scored 100. Yeah. But I'm a bit detached from it. So I'm out of my comfort zone. In a funny way, people will look at the job, and I've had a lot of people say it's a bit of a step down, isn't it? But it's a massive out of my comfort zone because I don't know club cricket, and my methods that I've used for Berkshire aren't necessarily going to work for Datchet. And then the other line of work that I've got keeps me probably at the top end of where I want to be from a coaching perspective. But Datchet is going to give me some serious learning very, very quickly. Can the same model work at this level, and what do I have to tweak? And I might be a bit of a better rounded coach by the end of it, and person, I guess.
Do you think that's almost a benefit going into it slightly naive and not knowing club cricket rather than the people who have been in there for years and years and you kind of having a fresh set of eyes on it?
I guess, yeah, a freshness, really. I think fresh is probably the right word. That's not being disrespectful to club cricket. I'm very aware of the Berkshire boys and how they're getting on and which clubs they play for. But I don't really look at the overall picture of club cricket. I just look, did Johnny get 100 on Saturday? Did so-and-so get 5 wickets? Did Rishton do well? Whatever it might be. And then I could sort of go to bed happy that they're in good nick or slightly concerned that they hadn't had a good Saturday, whatever it might be. But I didn't actually look at the overall picture of it. And, you know, even my time at Datchet, before I retired, I never played as a coach. I made that very clear. Berkshire's my job and I'm here to play. This is my playing time. I don't want to be involved in warm-ups or anything like that. So I was just a teammate at the time as opposed to a coach. And I made that distinction very clear. So this will be my first attempt at overseeing a team. And I think a lot of what we've already discussed is around the first team. Mustn't forget there's three other teams at the club: second team, third team, fourth team. How do I interact and manage third and fourth team players? I've never had to do that. How do I make them want to stay at the club? How do I make them attract their friends or their kids play at the club? It's a totally different challenge, and one that it's nice to get out of your comfort zone and see if I can. I guess my man management skills and what I've learned. How do I relate that to league cricket? I guess, or clubs.
Yeah. What's the bigger picture? Thinking 5, 6, 10 years down the line.
Oh, look, my short-term goals at Berkshire was to put nappies on my kid's bum at the time. I think when I took the job back in 2012 because I didn't have a job, I didn't really look too far ahead. But what I certainly romantically thought of, I'm a big lover of sport. I'm a big lover of football, probably more in terms of Liverpool Football Club and stuff. I like the way you build a culture within something and try and build it up. So even as a young 29-year-old, I thought, I wonder if I could make this into something that people care about deeply in years to come. So in the long term, I'm very proud of the last couple of weeks, getting the messages I've had about what I did for Berkshire, and a lot of the guys who were 10 at the time, who are now 23, 24 years of age. I guess you don't realise at the time how much of an impact you've had on people's lives. But I guess, I find it hard to talk glowingly about myself because I'm not like that. But I guess I have left a really nice legacy at Berkshire. Yeah. And I'd love to do that at my cricket club. I'd love to walk away in 10 years' time where it's a thriving club with, 50, 60, 70 playing members, 250 colts, full on a Friday night. Parents love it. That's how I grew up. When I grew up at the club in the 90s, my dad would play and I'd stay down there till 11 o'clock at night. It meant we got late nights and there were kids everywhere and the bar was full and the place was a thriving club. I don't think any club's like that actually in modern day society. So if you're asking me what does 10 years time look like, I wouldn't mention anything about winning leagues or getting promotions. Just is it thriving? Is there loads of people there? Is it a business, so to speak? Are we self-sufficient? Are we able to proudly make money and be able to turn that money into good things for the community? I think the village in itself is probably not quite what it used to be. Imagine 10 years time looking at it and saying the village is a thriving place with people that see it as the hub of the community. Slightly different goals maybe from what I've done previously. I think the byproduct of that might be that it's a successful club across 4 teams: first team, second team, third team, fourth team. But if it's not, but there's a lot of people there, we must be doing something right. So my goals are very different from what they used to be performance wise, I guess, with Berkshire. But I think the same methods will hopefully get me there. Well, I hope so anyway.
Do you think, talk about the difference between a business and a club? It's a really interesting distinction that I think a lot of clubs really do struggle to manage. How do you foresee managing that?
Good question. I don't know, to be honest. I like is in my head and trying to teach everybody around me that success isn't just what happens on a cricket field. Success is, people that are currently 14, 15 years of age, 25, 26 years of age, getting married, having kids and still being part of the club. I don't think many clubs have that longevity left anymore. And that's not a criticism. That's just fact, I think, in modern day society, that people don't stay at clubs very long. And to think that in 10 years' time, I might sit there with people that I first met at 14 and they're 24, 25 getting married and we're all going to their weddings and stuff and we're all part of something that we're really proud of, would be as big an achievement as winning anything. And as I say, the byproduct of that might be that the club is successful across 4 teams. But I think if we make that just our objective, that we want to get back into the Premier League and win the Premier League, then I think there's no point in me being there. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to help the second team, the third team, the fourth team who, they're Division 4, Division 8, Division 9. We need to take them north and get them closer to the first team. I think to judge it on we won a Premier League will not be what I'm judged on in 10 years' time. It just might happen if it ever did. And do you know what? If we were a TVL one side, but we had people walk through the door, it was interesting. The guys that I'm coming in to work for, we discussed a lot about the club and what it used to be like in the 90s. And we spent an hour just sort of smiling about the club being full and remembering all of us having a drink and our first drinks. We did a lot of firsts together, my generation. We did a lot of our first drinking, our first girlfriends, etc. at the club. And none of us really exist anymore. And maybe the club is right to be a TVL one side as long as it's thriving. We don't know what direction we're going to go in yet. Clearly, I'm a performance coach and my whole 13 years have been about winning games of cricket, winning trophies, producing cricketers. Absolutely, I need to produce cricketers, but maybe the ceiling of where those cricketers can go, and not necessarily England and first class cricket or national counties cricket. It might be just high achieving third and fourth teamers who have a social life out of cricket and bring their families up in a nice club. I don't know whether I'll get the same kick out of the two things, but hopefully I do, and that's kind of the vision, I guess.
I want to go back to junior cricket. There statistically, there's a huge fall off in the transfer from junior cricket into senior cricket. What do you think that is, and do you think that it's a culture thing that you aim to develop in order to mitigate that?
Good question. I don't know the answer to it. I'm not experienced enough to be in club cricket. So, as I say, from a you see it from a pathway perspective, I guess, where education is so important now that the highly educated guys maybe don't have the time to spare, and you see that real element at under 18 where if they're good, they stay on. But if they're not, then they fall away in terms of it's probably not for me cricket, so I'm going to go into further education to get good jobs, etc. So I don't know where the fall off is in club cricket. I hope to find out. I guess I'd love to give you an answer, but everything that I've done in the last 10 days has been. I've spent so much time ringing up and speaking to second, third, fourth team players. Tell me what you want. What can I give you? How can I help you? How can we join everything together? And I'm hearing stuff that I probably haven't heard before because I've naively ignored it and just concentrated on the top end. Not naively, that wasn't part of my job, I guess. But what is part of my job now is bringing everyone together, which will be really exciting. And that was what Berkshire was. We had to bring everyone on the ride, really, and we had to make the under 10s, 11s, 12s meet the first team players and get to know them and stuff. And that'll be a big. There's lots of transferable things I can do with making sure the first team stay behind after games, speak with the second, third, fourth team as we all become one unit. Because I wouldn't imagine the club, or it doesn't appear to be quite like that. And I think most clubs would be similar. I don't think the necessarily first team players congregate with third and fourth team players on a Saturday very often in modern day society. Whereas back in the day, the one thing you did when you finished with the third team was who could get back fastest to get to the bar to play on the outfield if you're a kid, playing the nets, or drink at the bar if you're an adult. So I don't know that those cultures can ever come back because maybe society isn't like that now, but it's certainly something I'll try and bring back because that's the fondness I remember of my upbringing.
Mm. Winter prep, what's it going to look like?
Just starting on Sunday, a little bit late to the party. So obviously only coming into the job 10 days ago, there was nothing in place. And to be fair to the club, they definitely left that for me. They didn't arrange anything. As I say, we were sort of discussing this opportunity for about 3 months. So they held off to do that. So that's no criticism of the club at all. But yes, we start Sunday at a Windsor Boys School, and we've got everyone from the nines all the way through to the seniors in together over the course of the day. So I'm looking forward to getting started. It'll be really different for me from a performance perspective. That's quite a task for a coach to go from an under 9 session through to a 15 session to an adult session, and the variances in players that will be in the room will really test me. Obviously I'm used to some pretty elite 15, 16 guys in a room, and how I structure that will be a real test of me as a coach. So yeah, that'll be real fun. But we start Sunday, and we've got 5 weeks leading into the summer. There's a lot of work going on at the club at the minute, which is fantastically exciting for the place. We're very fortunate to have a bit of an overhaul of the ground in terms of both outside and inside. So fingers crossed that'll all be ready to go early April, and then we'll all descend on that, and then the summer will start.
In terms of fitness and winter prep, how important do you think it is? And do you think at club cricket level, that's still equally as important for a first team group?
Look, I think physical fitness will always be important. I think athleticism will always be important to any level of sport. You're only going to be better through being physically fitter or physically more able. I think at High Wycombe, one of the clubs that I look up to greatly. I think them and Henley, and I'm not speaking out of turn to other clubs here, but I know people within the two clubs. I think they're really well-run clubs. And I think it's a little easier to do when you have an established culture and club to be able to do that at that level. From my own perspective, I think it would probably be a bit naive to go in and hammer home we're going to get fitter regime, lads, because I think you want people to be there in the first instance, not scare them off. So I don't think it'll be too heavy-handed on the physical side of things. I've got to remember that as well. It's something I've kind of spoken to myself about is you know what works at that level, but it doesn't mean it will necessarily transfer down. And I probably have got the most learning to do than the players do about what will work. But yeah, look, in terms of High Wycombe, Links will want the guys working hard, etc. And Connor and the boys down there, they're a really successful club, and there's probably a culture that's used to that. I think I would like to slowly build that in. I think if I went in two-footed and said we're going through A, B, C, and D, just as we did at Berkshire, I'd be frog marched out of there pretty quickly, and quite rightly, because like things aren't necessarily transferable.
What are you least looking forward to at part of the job?
I don't think anything, to be honest. I honestly mean that. I'm pretty excited about it all. As I say, a bit like I was in 2012 when I took the Berkshire job. I wake up every day and I feel quite crikey, what can I get my teeth stuck into now? And as I say, talking to maybe 40, 50-year-old guys about the third and the fourth team, I've never done that before. But you actually listen to their passion and what they want to do, and you think, wow, this club's or club cricket means a lot to a lot of people. You get cocooned too much in performance and you forget about all the other people. Getting back and working with kids, seeing what the kids are like, is probably something I've done less with Berkshire over the last 5 or 6 years. I probably have been more orientated around the top end. So I'm quite used to working with adults and the best of the sort of 18s and the EPP boys up to 16. So I walk into a room and everything's fairly elite and the culture's ready to go. I'm going to be working with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old boys and girls who I can't, the last time I did that at that level was some years ago. So how quickly can I inspire them, or can I influence them to get better? I'd imagine the gains are a lot quicker. You make people better a lot quicker, which will be quite a rewarding thing as well. So yeah, no, it's I wouldn't say there's anything I'm not looking forward to. Admin, maybe. I think admin would be a thing. I've been really lucky. Like a lot of the admin stuff I did up to 2016 with Berkshire, but Stewie Davis and Neil Robinson were far better. Came in and really structured that much better than I did, and I was left to coach. So I'm a little wary of all the admin. I've been asked to do a few budgets and a few spreadsheets, and I can't quite remember how to use Excel. So I haven't necessarily enjoyed that part of the last week. But yeah, other than that, I'm excited to get going. Daunted a little bit. I've genuinely had a few days of waking up feeling quite anxious, thinking, "Crikey, this is a bit different." And in itself, I guess that keeps you alive, keeps you motivated. And again, I wouldn't have done it for any other club. If it was another club that came in and offered me the world and said you can do this, this, and this, and I didn't have an emotional tie to the place, then I don't think there's any way I'd have done it. I'm really, really fortunate, and the club is really, really fortunate in the position it's found itself in. And I hope I can do a good job that the people have asked me to do.
100%. Datchet performed quite poorly last year, whilst having some of the best individuals in the side. What ultimately, what is it about a team that creates success? Because you can have a team of fantastic individuals, but fall incredibly short. Why do you think that was?
Oh, look, not for me to say. I wasn't involved in it. One thing I will say, and I said it earlier, actually, I felt quite responsible for the place the club's in because I left 4 years ago, and it was my doing to probably change the stance of the club to be quite performance related to get to the Premier League, and therefore the position it's in now. And they didn't perform particularly well last year, and any team that gets relegated would say that, but that's not a criticism of any of the individuals. The question you've asked, not necessarily relating it to Datchet, I can definitely answer on, in terms of having played against a lot of teams packed full of really, really good individuals who don't perform quite as well as a unit. And as I say, I might be wrong in saying this, but there's 3 teams in the home counties that I really respect and look similar to what I know of, and that's Wycombe, and that's Henley, and that's Aston Rowan. I think they're really, really grounded clubs. And this is an outside perception. I may be wrong in this, but from my respect levels, those 3 clubs look like well-run clubs. Thinking through what they're doing. Clear hierarchy within the club, good culture, players work hard, availability every week. Guys really care about the club and want to be in there. And that's not to say guys at other clubs don't care. And our lives all change on a Saturday. You're giving up your spare time to do it. But it feels like those 3 clubs have got their finger on the pulses of guys that want to be there every week, battle hard. And ultimately, I believe, again, my knowledge isn't great, but I think they're probably the last 3 or 4 winners of the league has come from those 3 clubs. I think they're structurally sound. Maybe a few of the other clubs are still going through the process of evolving, have come up. They've got a bit of a turnover of players again and just trying to find their formulas. It doesn't feel like Wickham and Henley's and Aston Rowan's turnover of player is big. And if it is, it's usually something they really need.
Mm.
And they probably make good decisions in who they bring in. So from the outside, and I might be wrong in that because I'm not that experienced in the league, from the outside, that's the image I have of those three clubs. And I think it's no surprise that they've been the three recent winners.
What other kind of things can you talk about with the club that's going on over the next year?
Well, just that the main aim of the club is to build infrastructurally. So to create a ground that we're all very proud of, to create a facility that we're all very proud of, and as a direct result, bring people in that want to be part of it from the local community. And I really like that vision. It certainly isn't, and I've heard some rumours and people talking about there's this, that, and that, and there's loads of money at the club, and they're going to buy their way to this. Now I can assure you that's not the case because I haven't got a penny to spend, so I am where I am. My recruitment has been intelligent, I think, in ways in terms of people that have come and want to come and play for me, which I'm really proud of, and also young players. But yeah, we don't have a penny to spend, so I'd like to get that on record for starters. But what the club are doing is they want to create a place for the community, for the village that need it, because there isn't much there at the minute. It's a lovely village, and it's one I grew up in. My parents were married in the church that's right next to the ground. My grandparents lived on the next road, so I've been brought up at Datchet, and currently it's probably not at its height of success as a village, and there's certain parts of the industry aren't great. And the vision of the club is to make it the centre of the village, build it up, make people want to come in from the outside, love the facility. There's some really lovely work going on, and some of the stuff they've already done is amazing. And I was just really fortunate that it was me they came to say that you need to look after the bit in the middle, and we'll create something here that people are going to want to come to so that you can make them better and make their lives and their cricket experience better. I guess I'm really fortunate to be given that offer.